Everyone, let's welcome up here to the Lightning Talk. And with that, Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. All right. So, Customer Success Manager is not the hero in the story as we're building it. The truth is nobody cares about who you are, what company you work for, or the product that you're selling. The customer cares about what you can do for them. So as we drive our story, as we drive our messaging, as we interact with the customers, it's all about what we can do for them. So within Teradata, we're a 45-year-old company, software company, but we never had a customer success organization. Actually started about 5 years ago. I was on the sales side at that point in time, running a sales organization, sales team. And we developed this customer success organization, and it was a disaster. And it was a disaster for about 2 years that they added no value within the organization. They added no value to the customers. They were basically, if you think about it from a car perspective, they were in the back seat just waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. It was an awful experience. And we relaunched with some new leadership back in 2023. They ran through a series of initiatives to try to figure out what we can do to best improve the organization. We narrowed that down in 2024 around this concept of no, show, and grow. And that those three simple words started to help the team solidify and capture and figure out what we're going to do, and gave the team some focus for us. And we launched some initiatives for that. And then in 2025, it's really around how do we start to drive outcomes? How do we actually drive value to the customers for those initiatives that we're doing? And then again, 2026, just improving on what we're doing. So this has been the focus. This has been the strategy that we've had as an organization over the last couple of years. But this no, show, and grow concept has been kind of the centerpiece for us. And diving into that a little bit more, and I'm going to continue to dive in a little bit deeper. But around this concept of no, it was health and then early warning system. It was this EWS, we're calling it. And it was driving factors to figure out why a customer was leaving. And then that was ultimately, leading into the cancels and erosions for us. And, how do we understand customer feedback and truly bring in what the customer was saying? On the show side, these AI innovation days, we all looked at each other when our chief customer officer at our kickoff last year said, we're going to do an AI innovation day at every customer in 2024. And we all looked at each other and basically said, what's an AI innovation day? So from a standing start of zero, we created and did over 200 of them with our customers this past year. And just to give you an idea, our customer base is the Fortune 500. So we have a limited set of customers that we typically target. So doing 200 of them across the world was a pretty impressive feat for our organization. Driving education and action plans for these customers. And then how do we grow pipeline? And this has actually been a challenging area for us because unlike many customer success organizations where the sales teams get the customer and then the customer success organization actually does everything else moving forward, our sales teams were actually they're the owners of the accounts. They run the accounts, they run the account strategy, they run the account plans, and we're a part of the team. So there was a lot of consternation around us driving pipeline. It added a lot of confusion. We actually pulled that back this year. For accounts from a health perspective that are kind of red or yellow, how do we get them to green? That's kind of the major focus. But when they are green, how do you get them to grow? And then how do you be a part of the customer strategy? And that was, these are all the things that we were focused in on as an organization. So as we moved into 2025, we're doubling down on three of them. The cancel and erosions, we have to prevent that so we can continue to foster growth within the organization, drive further into health and this early warning system concept, and then again, double down on these AI innovation days and drive measurable targets on each of these three items for our teams. Within the health and early warning system that we had, we actually created 10 metrics. The first 5 around health, and then the next 5 around this early warning. So this was kind of the basis for us, and we forced the organization globally to fill this out every month. First, it was via spreadsheet, very painful, and then we moved it to Gainsight as we implemented Gainsight last year. And the customer success managers are responsible to work with the teams to basically get consensus and fill this out. So there's consistency and nobody's surprised when we say that the health is red or the health is green. Everybody knows that that makes sense. So they basically go through a series of questions, which I'll show kind of a sample on the next slide, around, is the customer engaged with us? Are they actually talking to us? Are we talking to the right levels? Are we driving value and outcomes for them? Is there competition within the account? At what level? Is the customer buying into our strategy? Are they kind of buying into this concept of what we're pitching? And then on the bottom side, more are the operational aspects, project delivery, or do we have projects that are in the red, or are they actually driving value and green from a project perspective? Are we meeting service level responsibilities with system uptime? Telemetry, is our usage up or down or flat? Tech debt, is there old hardware on the site, or is there old software on the site that we need to upgrade because those customers have a higher propensity to leave? And then feedback from like the NPS scores and CSAT are driving customer feedback and product satisfaction. So this is what we're measuring on a monthly basis worldwide, and it's providing massive value. And then we're actually automating a lot of this as we move into the year. So we got the foundation right, and now we're going through some automation. And then here's just some sample questions. For us, we're trying to call high level in the organization, the CIO, the enterprise architect, chief data and analytics officer. Are we getting to those right levels? Do we have an executive sponsor? How often are we meeting with them? Do we have top-to-top engagement? Do we have an internal coach? These are just things that we are asking the teams to think about as they fill out those questions and the scoring for health and early warning. So from a prompt perspective, wanted to ask, what are the ways that you're measuring health within the customer, for your customer, and do you feel like you're measuring it accurately? Those are the two questions. Again, what are ways we're measuring health within your customer, and do you feel you're measuring health accurately? And then I do have some my contact information if you would like to get in touch with me. So with that, I think
Steve, you nailed it. Nice job. Hey, so a couple questions. We actually have a few minutes where we can do some questions and maybe unpack a few of these slides. So folks, if you can respond in the chat with your questions, Steve, we'll let you look into the chat. You get to be the big fish, and the questions in the chat are the bait. So you get to choose the bait that you're going to bite on. And then the ones that you don't bite on, we'll put in the LinkedIn group. And Steve's agreed to answer those in our LinkedIn group. But Steve, you showed a slide. People are kind of having questions if we're going in there. But one of the questions that came up as we were going, and I'd love for you to kind of chat about this a little bit, is do you believe NPS and CSAT are measuring actual customer feedback? is it not a binary response? So Parmeet had that as you were kind of chatting through, and you hadn't gotten to your slide yet with all of your measurement factors, but just curious for you to weigh in on that.
Great question. We do NPS twice a year, and we do CSAT once a year. It's a point in time measurement. It's helpful. I find I use the CSAT. I mean, I use the NPS score today on a all hands call to basically reiterate some points as to we're starting to see some positive movement within the organization, and the NPS score was a supporting factor to it. But we don't rely on the NPS or CSAT scores as a basis for the health of our customers.
Okay, great. And then just kind of going through here, a lot of folks are helping other folks and weighing in on some thoughts. So it might be actually more efficient for me to pull out some of the questions. Maddie asks, how much is the success mission to identify opportunities for the product team to build new things or change existing?
For us, I'd say very little. Just based on the way our organization is set up. Most of the product demand is coming from the go-to-market team, specifically the technical individuals. They're the ones that have the direct line into our product organization. We certainly support it. The other part of our organization is customer service. So we see when the product breaks and some of the challenges, and we feed that up as well. But the main areas are system engineering organization.
Great. And another question that I had for you that I thought was cool about your slide, if you want to pull that slide up that shows all of the metrics that you're using. And I think for our audience today, one of the considerations that I'd love to kind of stimulate conversation around is, yep, this slide. Perfect. So, Steve, I thought it was interesting that one of the things that you're measuring, there's two things that stood out to me. Number one, and I'd love for you to dive into these further. Number one is competition, and number two is tech debt. So, some of us, in fact, I would guess most of us on the call don't have any kind of measurement around what our client's tech debt looks like or what their competition looks like. But could you dive into why you decided to use those two and how you're using them?
Yeah, so let me start on the top level first. We ran analysis at the end of last year and at the end of the year prior around what's really driving a customer to kind of decline in revenue for us, and it was pretty specific on both surveys or both analyses that we did. The engagement level was number one. We weren't getting to the right levels within the organization. So we could spend our time talking to a director or even sometimes a VP, and their directive was from the CIO. And no matter what we said, it wasn't going to change it. We only got movement when we got to the CIO or the chief data officer or the chief analytics officer. So because of that level of engagement, when we weren't getting to that area, we were finding that the customers weren't strategically aligned, number 5, and that was bringing in the competition because they thought the competition could do what we were not doing. So those 3 things, 1, 5, and then 4, were the key basis for us from a health perspective. From a tech debt perspective, we saw this really a lot in 2023, and then we tried to fix it in 2024, where because we know we sell hardware and we sell software, and we know that when a customer is on a lower level of software or lower level of hardware, they have a greater propensity to leave. So we spent a lot of time working with the customers to get them upgraded. Some of it was as simple as, hey, customer, did you know you're not on the latest version? We need to get you up and running. And the customer said, oh. Other customers, because it's enterprise software and our software is dependent on a lot of other things, sometimes it takes a little bit longer. But we now have a line of sight for every site ID and every piece of software that we sell by customer, what their plan is over the next 6 months. Uh, so it's a lot of work. The customer success organization doesn't do that. It's the other part of our organization around service experience that does that. But it's the combination of the two. So hopefully that answered your question.
Absolutely. Man, that's great. I recall my days in client success, and I love how you're looking at the different cohorts of your customer and identifying variables that differentiate those that churn and those that don't. And I'm sure that most of us on this phone call have different variables. And so that's what I'm hoping you, when you go into your breakout rooms to discuss, is to discuss the interesting things about your customer, because every customer persona is going to be different. And so, Steve, I think it's such a great example about tech debt and strategic alignment. Even what you mentioned with strategic alignment, that's so interesting. All right, fantastic. Well, I am going to get our breakout rooms moving here. Let's again give Steve